Now is a very esteemed panel of experts on what is big international news, historic news coming out of the White House today with President Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. His 21-point plan. Boy, my phone has been blowing up ever since we got off radio today, where we carried it live with our reporter on the ground in Israel. You know, I got one of my friends who was high up in the government said, this is really weird. This individual basically said, if this wasn't Donald Trump, we would be making analogies between him and the Antichrist. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of weird, isn't it? But hey, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying if it wasn't Trump, people would be doing that. And conservatives who've been high up in the government are sending me that tonight because they're like, this. He's flip-flopping all over the place. He's praising Erdogan, the president of Turkey. He called him a good man. He called him a strong man. I don't know. And we think we can make peace with terrorists. I think Ronald Reagan said we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, we're negotiating with Hamas. We're going to cut them a deal. We're going to release a bunch of their terrorists. They're in Israeli prisons for life, for murder. We're going to give amnesty to any of the Hamas folks that agree to this. And I predicted on radio today, at the end of the hour, that I believe they'll end up using digital ID, biometrics, basically turning Gaza into like a United Nations 15-minute city. That's what they're going to do. Now, no quicker did I say that than I got off the air and I went and I researched it. And sure enough, I found an article. Here it is. A document detailing plans for post-war Gaza aims to make President Donald Trump's Gaza Riviera vision a reality. Using mass displacement, artificial intelligence. Okay. And at least a decade of U.S. trusteeship over the war-ravaged enclave, outlined in a 38-page document. Initially discussed by the Washington Post, is reported under consideration by Trump's administration. Now, I didn't know this when I said this on the air today. I just said, wouldn't it be something if they went ahead and used biometrics, Palantir, digital ID, the UN model, Agenda 21 of everybody registered, 15-minute cities of the World Economic Forum, and they pulled it off in Gaza. I thought, okay, that's not a joke. I bet you they're doing that. Because these guys always tell you what they're going to do. So I went and looked. I thought, you know, if they're thinking about it, it's somewhere on the net. And sure enough, look at this. There's a huge document on this. Huge document. And if you use the old Control F and you put in the word digital, zero ground construction of 6 to 8 dynamic, modern and AI-powered smart planned cities on the inner side of the Gaza ring. All services and economy in these cities will be done through ID-based digital system. Go to the next one. Because every time they say digital, I've done the old Control F. All services and economy in these cities will be done through ID-based, AI-powered digital systems. That's the next one. And now look how much digital pops up. Convert RE asset into digital asset. Digitize asset information, blockchain is record of ownership, digital and land title registration. I mean, they're going to use this model, folks. Yeah. How's this setting the stage for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled? And how is this going to drag America, maybe, into more conflict? Are they going to get all the Islamic terrorist nations on board? Because apparently America is going to be taking over. Is this going to have any implication when it comes to that, America, terrorism? Who's going to be paying for this? Listen to what President Trump, one of many quotes, then we'll go to our esteemed panel. Dr. Rob Lindstedt, Annie Cyrus, Dr. Woods, Patrick Wood.
A beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip.
What? Remember, he told us that months ago. He was serious.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for...
Now, this is not today, just so everybody knows. This is from a few months ago. This is back in February. So I want to correct myself if I said today. This is back in February. But I think you're seeing that that's exactly what's going to come to pass. Because President Trump went on to announce who is going to be in charge of this. Who is going to be the head of this peace board? Well, apparently President Trump is going to be in charge of the peace board. Apparently it was not his idea. It was somebody else's idea. But he said, okay, I'll take it. I'll be in charge of the peace board. And he's going to bring in Tony Blair as well. Tony Blair. Oh, I have to get to that. The Fabian socialist. Mr. Digital ID for everything, Tony Blair. Tony Blair, the same guy that's had the Tony Blair Faith Foundation, seeking to bring the religions of the world together as one. Talk about it in my book from 2016, The Coming Religious Reich. Had the Tony Blair Faith Foundation, seeking to bring the religions of the world together as one. He's also been working behind the scenes for years to try to broker some kind of Middle East peace. He's a globalist. He's a Fabian socialist, which the Fabians gave birth to the Labor Party. He's a globalist. He wants a Eurocentric world government. If you're a Fabian, go read Cecil Rhodes and the rest of them. And President Trump's got to throw this guy in to his plan? Seems like President Trump is thrown in with the globalists. Can I just be honest? Maybe that makes some of you angry, but I'm sorry. That's what it seems like to me. I could be wrong, but I'm not too happy about Tony Blair getting his hands in this. Are you? We need a digital ID for everything? Oh, I'll play the clips. But here's President Trump saying he's going to be the head of this peace board.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others.
Okay, does Mr. Trump, with all due respect, today you've called Tony Blair a good man, who is basically, for all practical purpose, a globalist, a socialist, a Fabian socialist of the Fabian order, of the Fabian society, where he bragged at the unveiling of the Fabian window created by George Bernard Shaw in 1910, which shows the world on fire and two men banging on it with an anvil with hammers, remold it near to a heart's desire. And Tony Blair unveiled it when it returned after it was stolen, and said he hoped that the Labor Party was fulfilling the worldview of the Fabians, his Labor Party. Fabians gave birth to the Labor Party. And yet he called him a good man. Today in this speech, he called Erdogan, the president of Turkey, a good man, a strong man. A man that has gone from really a secular government to an Islamic stronghold. Remember the so-called coup d'etat going on over there that he used as an excuse to, according to numerous reports, murder lots of people in leadership of his government and military, and turn it from a secular government into this radical Islamic nation, but he's a good man. It's kind of like the old line out of Princess Bride. I don't think you'll know what that word means. Let's continue. Donald Trump.
And they'll be named over the next few days. And it'll be quite the board. Working, everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with. Working with the World Bank and others, it'll be responsible.
Whoa! Whoa! Ho, 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 ho. Working with who? The World Bank. You guys know who the World Bank is? Of course you do. You're a smart audience. That's the United Nations. And what did I show you guys on Friday night in that 1 hour on digital IDs? From back years ago now, what, 2020? 5 years ago, 6 years ago almost now? The World Bank calling for digital IDs. The United Nations. We're going to work with Mr. Fabian Socialist, Mr. New World Order, Tony Blair, Mr. Digital ID Everything, Tony Blair. And we're going to work with the United Nations, the World Bank. My twin sister texted me about this today. Many people texted me today. As I said, a friend of mine who was high up in the government. And people are like, I wouldn't believe that this would be something Donald Trump would do. But he is. Let's go back before we go to our panel.
For recruiting and training a new government that will be made up of Palestinians along with highly qualified experts from all around the world. Hamas and other terrorist factions will play no role in the board, but they'll play no role in the governance of Gaza at all, directly or indirectly. As you know, thousands of Hamas leaders have been killed and soldiers have been killed. And we can never forget October 7th, but thousands have paid the price for that.
All right, joining me now, there's a lot to play, but joining me now is our distinguished panel. Annie Cyrus of freedom.com, Patrick Wood of technocracy.news, Andy Woods, not to be confused, that would be andywoodsministries.org, and Dr. Rob Lindstedt of BibleTipNow.org. I must first go to Annie Cyrus because ladies first. And Annie predicted this last week. Let me play the clip for you. Here it is. Okay, there you go. Rumble, another great website, Rumble. Let me try that again. They'll make you sit through 1 million commercials before they let you see anything. But anyway, I'll try to bring it up. But, you know, I don't know where they're spending their money. Certainly not on their player, apparently. But I'll try to cue it up. Annie, I wanted to play the video of you, but Rumble's not concentrating or cooperating. But you said, I asked you last week about this. Tell me, Annie, what did you say? What did you predict?
I said that I have warned my audience, which are your network audience, that my Substack is going to be very busy in next 7 days. And this was, by the way, last Monday, the 22nd. Mm-hmm. And I said, I warned them because this is the week that with UN push, by end of the month, by the 30th, Palestine is going to go home as a state, as a recognized state. And then watch as the flames are going to go higher from Middle East, then to Europe, I named the countries, and then to United States. And then you said, but President Trump is strongly against recognizing the state of Palestine. I replied saying, you really think President Trump, who just issued a visa for al-Jilani of Syria, will have any problem recognizing Palestine? And you said, so you're saying the two doesn't go together. Literally word by word, that is the discussion we had last Monday. So yes, I have a good 5 hours of things to say. At the same time, I have nothing to say. I already said what I needed to say last Monday.
Well, here it is.
Which is
here it is.
A small portion of shared audience with yours. That next 7 days, my Substack is going to be busy. I'm going to have my eyes, no matter who wants to report on what, my eyes are going to be on UN General Assembly. This is where Palestine is going to walk away as a country by end of the 30th of September. And watch as everything flips after that. Watch as flames get bigger and bigger in Israel, Golan Heights, Gaza border, and then later on in London, France, Canada, Portugal. Portugal also joined. Australia joined, and then United States of America.
But President Trump is saying we're not going to recognize a Palestinian state, right? Mike Huckabee has been very strong about that, right? Is Mike Huckabee going to be forced to resign?
President Trump is very against officially acknowledging a state of Palestine, but he has no problem with Jelani getting a visa and coming to America. Give me a break.
What you're saying is the two don't jive.
No. And there will be a time. Actually, I never thought I would say this out loud or in my own head. President Trump allowing Jelani in this country today was a more dangerous move than UK, France, Canada, Australia, and Portugal acknowledging the state of Palestine.
Why?
Why? Number one, President Trump just showed the entire world that you can be a bloodthirsty jihadist. If you play with my rules, I give you a nice Armani suit, I call you a good-looking guy, and I get you a visa to come into New York. That is a dangerous move. And this man still has 3 years of power in the United States. How many more jihadists do you think are going to put on a nice suit, do a good haircut, good looking to Trump to start coming in?
Do you think that this is a foreshadowing of a President Trump recognizing a Palestinian state, or maybe if not officially recognizing it, doing things that send a signal without official recognition? And do you think it's going to eventually lead someone like a Mike Huckabee to find, the old thing they do is, I got to spend more time with my family. Do you think eventually he'll be like, I can't stay here as ambassador of the United States to Israel, I've got to go? Because he's been very strong about this. I mean, what is Mike Huckabee thinking today, you think?
Well, before I answer the Mike Huckabee, let me say this. No, this was a divide and conquer. Europe and Canada will take the headline by recognizing a state of Palestine. Trump will take the headline by allowing Jelani in. They're both the same move, but Trump preferred to take this one.
And is this how does this play? Let's play devil's advocate. How does this play? Are they trying to separate Syria from Russia, from Iran? What's the play here?
In Trump's mind, or in the globalist mind, or in the red-green axis mind?
All the above.
Because we have three. Okay.
Go
in
ahead.
Trump's mind, he just made a great chess move, got his hands on treasures of Syria, and he's going to leave a legacy of bettering our economy and making more peace in the Middle East by shaking hands with Jelani and giving him a government.
Okay, by the way, when you say, are you saying, all right, we'll stop it there. So you called it 7 days ago, right, Annie?
Well, by exact words, yes, but I technically called it back in May of this year when he made a trip to Middle East and shook Jelani's hand. That's where I started saying this is coming. But yes, by exact words of this so-called proposal or deal coming 7 days ago, I called it, yes. And I just want to say, I'm not claiming I'm a prophet. I'm not anti-Trump. For those who think I have turned against Trump, I have lived a life of a Sharia-obeying human being, okay? I can see between the lines that are not being spoken. I know how these people play the game. I have literally recapped UN General Assembly for 8 years now. I know what's coming day one of UN General Assembly. So that's why I was able to call what just happened today 7 days ago.
All right, let's bring in we'll come back to Annie, of course. Let's bring in Dr. Rob Lindstedt. Dr. Lindstedt, you watched the whole thing today. What did you make of it?
Well, I would begin by saying, what's a piece of paper worth? And okay, so we end up with a piece of paper, but the paper is only valuable if the people who signed the paper have principles and will stick to the principles. We know Jelani doesn't stick to principles. We know he's an enemy of Israel. In the last 48 hours, he hasn't changed his mind on Israel. So he signs a piece of paper, but it's worthless. Hamas. It's almost ridiculous, because if you go back and watch the UN narrative for the last several days, they walked out on Israel. They said Israel was trying to take over the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Turkey and Egypt and others have said we're ready to invade them. I mean, they actually use those words, and so they're saying one thing 48 hours ago, and now we switched. Here's Trump. You know what? I'm not trying to be anti-Trump. He's done a lot of good things in the few months he's been in there, but I'm very dubious about this, because he feels like he's doing a real estate deal, and this is not a real estate deal. He has to understand the Middle East, and I'm not sure he does. Why would Hamas? Matter of fact, Hamas says they still have not seen a copy. This is as of 30 minutes ago. They still have not seen a copy of the 21 points. They can't agree on 1 or 2 points. How are they going to agree on 21 points? And I promise this: you're not going to see all the hostages released. The only reason that they would consider it all is because Israel was winning the war. 700,000 or 800,000 Palestinians have fled the country. A couple 100,000 more tried to leave the country. A new leadership in Hamas, young leadership. They don't even know what they're doing. And so maybe that's why they said, okay, we'll negotiate. But I promise this: I don't trust what Hamas puts on the paper. I look at this board of peace. Matter of fact, one other statement said they're going to bring about eternal peace. That's not going to happen. Otherwise, you wouldn't need an Antichrist. Jared Kushner, his legacy has been to make peace deals. Name one that he's made that's been successful. Tony Blair. Wow, Mr. Do Nothing. And so I can't say I'm very optimistic. Matter of fact, if I were Israel, I think this is a good time for you to say, you know what? I think we'll go back home and we'll continue doing what we've done, and that is to win the war inch by inch. We don't need a Riviera in Gaza.
Nope. Let's go to, I agree with you. Let's go to Dr. Woods. Dr. Woods, your thoughts today, please, on this?
Well, I kind of look at it through the angle of prophecy. And first of all, Ezekiel 38, verse 8 and verse 11 talk about an invasion of Russia, Turkey, and Iran during a time of peace. So to my mind, this would set the stage for that. Beyond that, according to Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, the Antichrist will launch the 7-year tribulation period by making a peace treaty with national Israel. The way I sort of understand it is the deals will already be on the table. The Antichrist just comes along the scene and confirms what already exists. And so that's why in a lot of English translations in Daniel 9:27, it'll use the word confirm or strengthen. So an existing deal like this, to my mind, pushes us in that direction. I've also always got my eye on Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, which talks about a Eurocentric New World Order and a Roman Antichrist. So when people are telling me that a guy like Tony Blair, the quintessential globalist from Europe, is going to be, on this committee or this table or whatever they're calling it, my ears perk up from that standpoint. And then I've always got my eye on Joel chapter 3, verse 2, which indicates this is what will break or trigger God to bring his wrath to the earth in the 7-year tribulation period. It'll be the attempt to divide his land. And so when I hear all this talk about, Gaza is going to be a separate deal and the Palestinian state is going to be a separate deal, the United States of America is going to come in and run this or that, I'm thinking, well, that's Joel chapter 3, verse 2. And I'm not setting dates for things. I'm just kind of a trends guy. And so these are the major prophetic trends, I see all running concurrently in something like this.
Absolutely. Let's go to Patrick Wood. Patrick, what are you've been following Bible prophecy and globalism for years. You're an expert on technocracy. And here I bring in this plan. I just said on radio today, hey, I bet you they end up using a 15-minute city type concept, biometrics, digital ID. Tony Blair's huge on that. I got the clips I'll play again tonight. I've been warning about this guy extensively before my book in 2016. I was warning about him before my book, but then in 2016, I made him a big part of my book, The Coming Religious Reich, Empire Kingdom. And I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't use the digital ID and all this. I didn't know. I got off the air and searched, and I found that document I just showed a while ago. I mean, they're planning on using technocracy to run Gaza. What do you make of all this as an expert on technocracy?
They really are. You have to figure, I think, the only way that they can monitor the situation is making a positive ID, biometric ID on every single person in the Gaza area. That's the only way they can control it. That plays into not only technocracy, but also the digital ID concept. You figure. There was one other thing that I saw that in this document as I just read it, skimmed through it. There's a section called The Opportunity, and it talks about Gaza is a regional trade hub at the crossroads of the ancient sea route, Egypt, Gaza, Babylon, and the incense trade route. That's India, Yemen, Arabia, and Europe. It can thrive once again at the center of the pro-American regional architecture. You might remember Bibi gave a address to the United Nations before the September 7th attack, 2023, where he outlined this concept of a new canal being erected, or could be erected, through Gaza to establish an alternate route for the Suez Canal. So factor that in here also. These people have big plans for Gaza. And you can see it's all going to be about trade, I think, in the end.
Yeah, Brannon, I think that's called the Ben Gurion Canal.
It is.
That he's talking about.
It is. Okay. The Ben Gurion Canal cuts right through there. And we've talked about that for a long time and asked the question. And, a lot of our anti-Zionists have said, is this just a play for the land and money? And, what's really interesting is I don't agree with Tucker Carlson on much anymore. And I played this clip for Logan today. He said, that's interesting. You guys are agreeing on something, but for different reasons. You're on the different sides of this, but you're agreeing as to your concerns. This was just a few months ago. I guess Tucker Carlson interviewing Sean Ryan. I guess that's who this is. Watch this. This is interesting.
Just get done also with the deals that just happened over there, or was this earlier? You would probably know.
No, I don't know.
You don't?
I've not made $1 in the Middle East, not one.
Well, I mean, you're a lot more on the inside than I am. And
no. I'm just a visitor and a traveler and a watcher, but I don't. There's
is some of this about money? Is it about? They go on to get pretty blunt as to what they think about this. So the reality is this is just what some folks are saying. I don't know. Anyone want to comment on this?
Yeah, Brannon, I want to go back to the comment that Andy Wood said about Joel chapter 3. The thing that God's going to have his wrath stirred up about is the fact that the land that God gave to Israel was parted, was divided, wasn't left in Israel's hands. Does it make a difference whether that's Hamas the Palestinians or the U.S.? Why should the U.S. have any more priority over that land than anybody else? The land is God's, the land is Israel's. So here we are, let's say 48 hours away from where Trump repeated 3 or 4 times, Israel cannot annex Judea, Israel cannot annex Samaria. That's their land. Now here's Trump, and he's going to make this eternal peace in the Middle East, and the land is going to be given to people other than Israel. So that's one of my alarms. I think it's important to say who really controls this. I'm also interested in the fact that the enforcers, last week I looked at Turkey, who announced a nuclear reactor, and then we made a big deal in the White House. We signed an agreement to build them a nuclear reactor. We're now going to sell F-35s to them. Why all of a sudden is Turkey the favored international power? Well, Turkey and Egypt just said that they had sufficient power to eliminate Israel. So we're bringing people in that have the same design that Hamas had. Hamas's design was to eliminate Israel. Hamas's design was to create a Palestinian state. And it looks to me like we're doing exactly that. This could well reward terrorists by saying, look.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Reward terrorists. You perform October 7th, you kill 1,200 people, you rape, you behead, you gang rape, you cut off the feet of babies, you put them in ovens. And we're going to give you a Palestinian state. I thought we didn't negotiate with terrorists. Now,
I'm sorry, can I come in for a second?
Go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Annie. Yeah.
This is not the first time we have rewarded jihadists. Remember, Christopher Royer, the seat of the Islamic seat at the Faith Board of White House, convicted, sentenced to 20 years prison, served 13 years of that 20 years. What was the conviction? Training jihadists, funding jihad, and going to Middle East to train more jihadists.
And he gets a board on the faith-based initiative of the Trump White House.
Yes. And then also, as I said last week, and as I've been saying for months, you have al-Jolani. He is also internationally convicted. And remember, United States of America was hunting Jolani with $10 million bounty on his head. You know who lifted that bounty? President Trump. So this isn't the first time President Trump is rewarding jihadists.
Why are we doing it? Are we doing it?
We're not. President Trump is doing it. And honestly, well, I should really, it's very risky to talk Bible in this very, very, very biblical panel, but I will dare and say what just was said. Trump repeatedly referred to his 21-point deal or plan as eternal peace. I don't know as much as all of you do, but I do know the one and only power who will and can provide eternal peace is God himself. Right. So
is Donald Trump doing this because he wants the Peace Prize? Is he doing it because he wants to go down in history? Is he doing it because his family is cutting deals and building golf courses, I guess, and hotels, according to news reports, in Qatar and other places? Is it the collection of all the above? Or do we have so many jihadis and terror cells here in the U.S., we're being told and dictated to if we don't want to see our cities destroyed?
Well, all of the above, but all of the above because President Trump allowed his ego. When he came back from Middle East, what did he say? I was treated like a king. And his supporters repeated the same thing. Many titles of next day shows were Middle East comes to realize Trump is the king. His ego has allowed him to want more, go down in history as the deal maker, possibly get the Peace Prize, and avoid any, because as of right now, everybody claims, it's a wrong claim, by the way, everybody, but everybody claims that during his first term, we faced no terrorist attack, jihadist attack. Again, incorrect, but that's what is going down in history. He wants to repeat the second one, but no terrorist attack or jihadist attack. So everything you said, but it is important. About 7 weeks ago or so on your show again, Brannon, I said, this was about Qatar. And I said, Trump doesn't care for America first or Americans first anymore. He's planning his retirement in Middle East. And again, today,
let me just ask you real quick: is he planning his retirement, or is he? And a caller brought this up on my show today. Is he not even going to be able to finish his first term? I don't know.
Well, he's not going to finish his term. I have talked to you off air, and I won't go to details, but I have talked to you off air about what I think is going to happen by January of 2026.
Well, let me just
and that includes him not finishing his term.
Well, let me go to the still picture of him today. Did anyone notice his right eye? His right, not your right. His right, folks. So if you're watching this on the screen, it would be your left. I watched his left eye, which is his right, to my left, that whole presentation. Am I the only one that's noticing this eye drooping a little bit? And I watched it during his whole speech, and I'm like, is this guy well? Is he not realizing he's not going to be around or be able to do the job? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. But then I saw that droopy left eye. I'm like, what is going on with him?
Well, instead of retirement, I should say his legacy. Because, his retirement, you're right. It's him enjoying it. But he has moved his legacy to Middle East. And because of that, he's doing what he's doing. And
is that because, I'm sorry to interrupt, is that because he realizes America is in such a bad spot with terror cells, our finances, the economy? I mean, we're in such a bad spot. There's not much he can do in the next few years with this economy. I don't know that he can do anything but switch us to the new system. So is he looking to make his legacy the Middle East because he can't really do much of a strong economy and go down as, the great businessman in America?
I will respectfully disagree that he couldn't fix America. He could if he wanted to. No, I don't think he gave up on America because he thought there's no way of fixing it and leaving a good legacy, either finishing his term or not. No, he acknowledged what every Western leader has acknowledged, which is the gem that is inside Middle East. Many leaders decided to take advantage of the gem of Middle East by creating more chaos, more division, more borders. Let's create Iraq. Let's create Syria. Let's create this. Let's make so many small jihadist countries out of Middle East so they're always at war so we can take advantage of the gem. Trump is a businessman. He looked at it differently. I'm going to take advantage of the Middle Eastern gem by putting my investment into Middle East. Again, personal, very well-educated guess, but that's what I think.
So you think you're going to see Trump companies involved in the Gaza rebuild, Annie?
No, because I don't think there will be a Gaza rebuild. Let me talk about this real quick. Dr. Lindsay touched on it very accurately. Hamas has not agreed. However, that is not the point. I'm pretty sure the agreement, this deal will not be finalized. This deal will not be held. It's not going to end war in Gaza, none of that. Therefore, there won't be a rebuild or post-war situation. But that is not the point. For me, that is not the point. The point is Americans need to realize the land that we fight for every day that was built on Judeo-Christian values under a Republican administration, under Trump leadership, wrote these 21 points that if you read every single one of them are not biblical, not constitutional, not American at all. That is my point. Regardless, I'm sure Hamas is not going to agree to two of the 21 points are absolutely not something Hamas is going to agree with.
Which are? Name those two real quick.
Well, one of them is the demilitarization, meaning they have to give all of their guns. They have two different systems to give all of their weapons, not just guns, but all of their weapons. They have to give them to the new leadership, which they call Board of Peace, led by President Trump. Hamas is not going to. Hamas doesn't have the authority to give those weapons to anyone. They have to get the approval from Islamic Republic of Iran and heads of Qatar. And neither one of those countries are going to give away millions of dollars in investment of weapons. So that's one of the things. However, there's a little article in that 21 plan that says some of the terms are still negotiable. So I don't know. They might negotiate that with Hamas and say, okay, you agree to the deal. We give you amnesty. You leave Gaza and take your weapons with you. Then Hamas will agree with that. Otherwise, there is no way Hamas, again, they don't have the authority. Let's not forget, Hamas by itself does not exist. Hamas is a proxy built by Islamic Republic of Iran and funded by Qatar.
And President Trump said today that they are putting together a trilateral group to work out their grievances between the U.S., Israel, and Qatar. So he said that today. I don't know. Did anyone else catch that? Did you catch that,
Yes.
Dr. Woods?
Yeah, I did. Let me just say one quick thing about this Prince of Peace thing. I believe this: God has designed that part of the world so that no human solution can fix it. I mean, that's the design of God.
Yeah.
And even the Antichrist, he'll bring in the best human option, but he won't fix it either. And so the only one that's, I think Annie referred to this earlier, the only one that's going to bring peace to that region is Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace. And this is by the design of God. And so any man that steps up and says he's bringing in eternal peace, I don't care if I voted for him or not, if he's a Republican or a Democrat, if he's a conservative or he's a liberal, if he's an American, if he's Muslim, I don't care. That is a non-starter. It's a non-starter politically. It's a non-starter spiritually. And if it were to ever work out, God himself would be denied the glory that he deserves. So that makes me, this whole talk that he's doing about eternal peace, I mean, that makes me reticent about the whole thing right out of the get-go.
Stealing the glory from God. Dr. Lindstedt, I had a well-known, internationally known pastor call me a week ago this past Saturday, and he said to me for the second time in a few months, he said, when is God going to judge Donald Trump for his overwhelming arrogance? He said, I appreciate so much of what he does, but how long is God going to put up with his arrogance? Well, that's between Trump and God. But here, that's a long-standing pastor in his 80s. That's a very much an expert on the Middle East. He's a Zionist like us. He's a dispensationalist. He's a historian. And I think the bigger issue for us isn't what God wants to do with Trump or not do with Trump with arrogance when it comes to usurping God's glory and eternal peace that he says he can bring and whatnot. But what is God going to do to America? There's a guy that wrote a book. We've interviewed him many times. He's a former federal Treasury official. And he wrote a book 20-something years ago, during the Bush administration, to George W., called As America Has Done Unto Israel. As America Has Done Unto Israel. McTernan, I think is his last name.
Yeah.
John McTernan.
Yeah.
And I had him on, I don't know, 6 months ago, a year ago. He details, Dr. Lindstedt, whenever America moves against Israel, these horrific things happen. I mean, like hurricanes that just wipe out so much of Florida and this and that. I think we got a hurricane headed to the U.S. right now. Don't we have a hurricane headed our direction right now, guys?
There's one in the Atlantic, but I think it's moving. A couple of observations. Number one, Andy talked about that would take glory from God. And if you look at Ezekiel 39, when this invasion occurs, all man's solutions fail. The armies have deserted Israel. And then there's a series of 7 disasters that only God can bring about a victory. And so it's like when Israel left Egypt, they couldn't point to something that they had done. No, God did a miracle. God delivered them in a miracle way. And I think Andy's right. I think this would show the glory of God, because look how many times. I mean, I have a list of everyone. Jimmy Carter. You go back and all these people that have tried to make peace. It would be the big feather. And but something that I noticed was he refers to this proposal, and it's almost distant from him. I don't think Donald Trump made the proposal. I think somebody has suggested this proposal, and he maybe is doctored a little bit, but really, it doesn't seem to have the Trump stamp on it. So how does he fit into it? Well, I think he does want a Nobel Peace Prize. I look at it as ego versus principle. There's people who negotiate based on the principles that they have. The Bible has principles in it. God has principles, and people with integrity have principles. But there's others, and they can do some of the work that someone that has principles can do, but they do it for their ego. It's one more thing that we can show that we've accomplished. Things done with an ego normally fail down the road. And I'm afraid that may be what's taking place here. It sounds good. We're making a peace deal where it sounds good. We just had a United Nations that was explosive. The chairman of the United Nations said, the world's on fire. He said the earth is melting. Wow, that's his assessment of it. And so on the eve of this whole week of UN meetings, we now come up with eternal peace. And so I don't think it's built on principles, because if you really look at it, there's some things that I don't think Israel's going to say, I'm comfortable with that. And I know there's some things, as Annie's pointed out, that Hamas is not going to agree to. We can't get them to agree on a couple principles. Number one, release all the hostages. Number two, surrender your weapons. We can't get them to agree to two principles. How do we get them to agree to 21? So I think it's ego versus principles and integrity, and I'm not sure that this proposal has the stamp of that.
Let's go to a clip, President Trump praising Erdogan today. Listen to this.
Complex. I mean, after 2,000, 3,000 years, whatever it is, I guess it's got to be a little complex, or it would have been done a long time ago. The King of Jordan was with us, as you know, in the United Nations. The President of Turkey, President Erdogan, is a friend of mine, a strong man, but a good man, pretty complex.
A good man, a guy that's had murdered, apparently, according to news reports, murdered a lot of people were there, turned the country from secular government to Islamic government. I don't know. The whole thing seems like a complete mess. I want to turn to you, Patrick.
I'm so sorry, since you brought up Erdogan real quick.
Okay.
Let's not forget, on Friday, when President Trump hosted President Erdogan, President of Turkey, at the White House and sat down, talked to him, as Dr. Lindsay mentioned, offering to resume selling them F-35s and all of that. He also said something that even myself, I'm not from Turkey, but I spent 3 years of my life in Turkey as a refugee. I was offended on behalf of people of Turkey when he said he's a strong leader who's done a lot of good for his people. And then he legitimized the fake coup that ended up with more than 2,800 Turk citizens dead, by comparing it to 2020 fraud elections, saying if anybody knows about election fraud, is this man right here. So just wanted to add a little bit more context into just calling somebody my friend or good person. But he went way farther than that on Friday.
This is from I want to get Patrick Wood's response here. This is from my book in 2016, The Coming Religious Reich, 600 pages or 500 something pages. You don't need to buy it, folks. If you have a membership to the Vault, it's free. Just go to worldviewtube.com/vault. You can join. And then you can live stream our national conference this weekend. I think we'll have plenty to talk about. Worldviewtube.com/vault. And you can get this book as an ebook for free as part of your membership. But here's what I say about Tony Blair. Tony Blair, I talk about him promoting his Tony Blair Faith Foundation. I'm just going to do the old Control F thing real quick, just show you a little bit about Tony Blair. Tony Blair moved socialism in England several giant steps forward. Now he continues the agenda he began in office by founding and leading the Tony Blair Faith Foundation. the goal of his organization is to bring the religions of the world together as one. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Go to the next reference to Tony Blair. Tony Blair and a pantheon of European leaders signed the document under the building's gigantic statue of Pope Innocent X, talking there about the European Union, his pushing of the European Union, which of course is part of the whole goal of dividing the world into 10 regions. We see that in the Bible. He talks about using religion as a civilizing force. There's a lot more I could say about Tony Blair. Of course, Rick Warren, America's pastor, they called him, he had to get involved and endorsed him and talked to how great his Tony Blair Faith Foundation is. Tony Blair's been pushing this is from a 2015 article, the idea of hate crime laws. So there's a lot we can say about Tony Blair. And I'm not a big fan, obviously, of Tony Blair, the Fabian socialist, Tony Blair. Now, let me show you a little bit about Tony. Here is Tony Blair Institute, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. You guys should follow him, his institute, on social media. Here's one of his guys just on September 26th. This is one of Tony's guys. We got plenty about Tony, but here's one of the representatives of the Tony Blair Institute on Global Change reacting to the UK's calling for digital IDs. It's digital slavery. They're going to do this in this Gaza area if they can get this thing off the ground. Watch.
I'm here in Westminster where the Prime Minister has just announced the introduction of a new nationwide digital ID scheme. This is a really big moment for the country and something we've been advocating for at TBI for a long time. This is because digital ID is the gateway to a new generation of public services. Personalised, preventative, always on, and is going to make a real difference to the lives of people in the United Kingdom. Now, the task is to deliver. I'm here in
He called it a scheme. I thought a scheme was generally not a positive thing, but he called it a scheme, did he not? Now, listen to Tony Blair himself on this, the guy that President Trump's tapping to be involved in this Gaza.
And the unvaccinated. So both here at home, if we do have to adjust some of the freedoms because of the rising pressure from new variants, then it's important at least to ensure that those people who are vaccinated have the maximum freedom they can. And I think that could also be done for travel. If you're double vaccinated, it should be much easier to come in and out of the country. And indeed, round the world, I think you will find that countries start to distinguish between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. So in Europe, for example, they're going to allow you to travel freely within Europe if you're double vaccinated. You get proper proof of vaccination. I mean, actually, the NHS ex-people have done a good job in the NHS app, but we need to make that interoperable with other systems so that you can use this as proof of vaccination. You're facilitating it. So I think that there may well be situations in which people decide they don't want to make that distinction. But I think you're going to find in many settings, people do want to know if they're going into that setting that the people around them, if they're mixing in close quarters,
this whole argument reminds me of something going back for some years. This is ID cards by the back door, isn't it?
Look, I was then, I remain even more convinced today, particularly with biometric technology, the world will move to biometric ID, and they'll do it because in the end it's better for people. It's not about, look, the amount of information government's going to have on you is going to be minimal compared with what your local supermarket has on you. So this is a completely sensible way to go, and I think you will find right round the world that people move in this direction because it will facilitate the access to government services. And by the way, in some of the developing countries, it will cut out biometric ID. I mean, as you know, my view is the whole world's getting changed by technology. The big political debate we should be having, we're not really having it, is how do you master this technology and harness it for the public good? But in every single field of our work, our leisure, the way we interact with each other, technology is going to change everything. So, you know, biometric ID is just one part of a much, much bigger picture. Face this situation in the future, we're going to have to create a global infrastructure to deal with future pandemics, because I think what has happened to us is probably part of a change that is going to be just normal life for the foreseeable future.
A global structure. We're going to use the pandemic. We're going to use climate change. We're going to use whatever we can to create a global structure. This is, I mean, laying the foundation for what's coming. And I hate to say it, Dr. Lindstedt, But is President Trump aware that by elevating this man, who was for people being double vaxxed, vaccine cards, all the things he's pushed, does he not realize this is a betrayal of his base, Dr. Lindstedt?
Well, I hope he does, because it really is doing that. You know, if you're going to make a deal, you have to trust the people that you're working with. I don't trust Tony Blair. You know, his stand on a variety of things, including controlling people. He never mentions the word control. That's why they have those things. It's to control. I'm concerned because just last week, I listened very carefully to the King of Jordan. And the King of Jordan said that Israel is no partner or part of peace. That's pretty harsh to say, and then come back 48 hours later and say, we're going to sign a peace treaty. He also accused Israel of undermining the Temple Mount. Turkey endorsed him and said, yeah, Israel has designs on the Temple Mount on a lost mosque. This is in the last 48 hours. And so here's Turkey, and the truth is, they said that Netanyahu has no perspective of history, and the former prime minister compared Netanyahu to Hitler. So two principal people in this whole thing is Turkey and Jordan, and they both have ripped Netanyahu and Israel in the last 48 hours. How can you sign a treaty and trust them if there's no respect for the words of these people? They have no respect for Netanyahu. Therefore, they'll have no respect for a piece of paper that they sign. I think all it does is kick the ball down the road and make it so that the search for a real peacemaker, a human peacemaker, is going to continue, but it certainly draws people's attention to the fact the world wants peace. They want it in the Middle East, and they'll do just about anything, even if it doesn't make sense, to try to get that peace.
And while we're doing that, Patrick Wood, there will be some things that come out of it. And one of them is that Tony Blair is a good guy. Tony Blair is going to get involved. He's a good guy. He and Trump are friends. Trump wanted him to be involved in the peace board. He must be a good guy. But Patrick, I want you to respond to this clip, please.
We cannot continue with business as usual, and change is inevitable. This is where technology, like digital ID, becomes critical. My institute's own analysis shows that introducing this in the UK would save at least $2 billion a year, and likely more, by reducing losses to fraud, improving tax collection, and better targeting of state support. We know this because around the world, countries like Estonia, Singapore, even India, have successfully implemented digital ID systems, cutting red tape and improving efficiency. These nations aren't just adopting new technology. They are reimagining how the state itself works. Of course, concerns about privacy and security are valid. But these systems, done in the right way, actually give individuals more control over their own data. With robust safeguards and transparency, we can ensure that digital ID enhances rather than threatens personal privacy.
Okay. So respond to this guy, will you please?
I think he's been talking to Peter Thiel, honestly. It sounds like the pitch. You have to remember that this guy has lined up with the globalist agenda forever. He was a friend. He never joined the Trilateral Commission. However, all of his policies over the years have dovetailed with Trilateral policies. So this guy has been a great friend of, even an implementer of the new international economic order. It's all over his face. He's talking about it, and he's talking about it now in the sense of an Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, both of which, and all the tech bros in Washington, D.C. at this point, they're all in for this concept of a digital ID. And just a matter of time, not just a password, not just a number. This is a biometric identification system. That's different. that it will be based on perhaps your iris, maybe your thumb, your fingerprints, your face recognition, some aspect, or a combination of multiple vectors.
But they could also use it to crack down on the whole MAGA. There would never have been a Donald Trump and the MAGA movement if we have biometrics and digital ID. They would have shadow banned us. They already were. But with digital ID, with the ability to control who's on the internet, who can even log in to broadcast, et cetera, there would never have been a MAGA movement. And apparently, Tony Blair is very aware of that. But apparently, Donald Trump isn't aware of the fact that Tony Blair is a Fabian socialist, a globalist, and against what his base is for, including the populist movement. Because here he is saying, for the headline, Tony Blair, bring in digital IDs to get tough on populism. So does President Trump understand if Tony Blair's agenda was put in place, he would never even have become president, Patrick?
I think he understands, honestly. Tony Blair was...
you think Trump understands that?
I think he does, because the populist movements of the world have all been compromised by technocracy when they got whatever, they made an election and got their candidate in. You saw it in Italy, for instance. You saw it in Great Britain as well. So I think Trump understands this. He can't miss it. And at this point, we know that Blair is just treacherous as anybody on the landscape. He can't be trusted to do anything for the people on behalf of the people. At this point, I have to say this: I don't like it, but we have to consider maybe President Trump really doesn't care what happens to the American people, especially the MAGA movement. That's an ugly thing to say, I realize, but we have to ask the question: if they're all in this together, and Tony Blair has been friends with these other world leaders like the leader of Turkey and the other Muslim kings and whatever sheiks in the Mideast. He's if they're all together in this brain trust, if you will, where does this leave us as the people of the countries? I can't see that really working out very well for anybody except them.
Are you saying that President Trump has cast aside caring what the MAGA base thinks? Annie, is that what you're saying? First of all, Patrick, and then go to Annie.
It kind of looks like that. It really does.
Well, Annie, didn't President Trump put something on Truth Social when they all were wanting to see the Epstein things, that a lot of you are stupid and I don't need you anymore, kind of thing? Didn't he say something like that?
Yes, he did. And he actually called them his former supporters. Like, he dumped them. And then as an ex, he came on Truth Social and said, my former supporters who don't understand, who are stupid and ignorant, are demanding, are following a hoax. He killed himself and there was no file and all of that. But yes, and earlier on your show, I wasn't as kind as Patrick. I flat out said he's done with America and Americans and he's moving on to Middle East. By the way, since you brought me on, just a quick update. The Hamas negotiators have received a copy of the 21 points through Qatar and Egypt. And as we said, they have already come back with, we are not going to meet your number 12, which is the disarmament or demilitarization of Hamas. Their argument is that we're going to lose our leverage. The wording they have used is they're going to lose their leverage, and it will compromise their right to resistance. So there you go. Let the game begin. They already said no to number 12. And then they also added that willingness to negotiate around certain terms, but will not accept the plan as is. So there you have it.
Well, again, thank you, Annie. Dr. Woods, I don't want the program to be negative all night about President Trump, because I appreciate a lot of things he's done. But getting a lot of texts and emails tonight from people, as I've already said, some who are up pretty high in the government, some who were in his first administration or even on social media, telling him what he's doing wrong. I want to be positive, but a lot of great points have been brought up tonight. Does President Trump, we need to obviously pray for him, but is he lacking discernment? Is he in a bubble and there he doesn't have all the information? Is it arrogance, or is it a collection of all the above? Is he just a pragmatic guy? Because that's what people said from the beginning when he was running the first time. You have to understand, he is a pragmatist. He doesn't have core principles. He's a pragmatist. How do you see all this?
Well, I go back to, I think it was Alexander Hamilton, I believe, said this. He said something to the effect of all men with political power should be distrusted. And I, as a new voter in 1980, my first president I voted for was Reagan, 84. Second president I voted for was George H.W. Bush. We went through all of this with George H.W. Bush. I mean, he ran a very conservative campaign against Michael Dukakis. He brought up, Willie Horton. He brought up the ACLU connection. And so we all thought that George H.W. Bush was going to get in there and kind of complete the Reagan legacy and be a real conservative. And he just got, either he was already a globalist to begin with, or he got sucked in by the globalists. And suddenly he started talking about this murky New World Order. And he's the one, you remember, that wouldn't guarantee the loans for Israel. And Secretary of State James Baker said, blank the Jews, they don't vote for us anyway. And so, you well into his term there, he sure seemed like a different guy than what he ran on. So if that doesn't teach us a lesson about people, nothing will. I think Trump is the same way. I think he's basically a pragmatist. I think once you sit in that chair, you get pulled all kinds of different directions by forces that most of us can't even contemplate, not sitting in that chair. And he's a human being, and he's tainted by the exact same sin nature as the rest of us. And that's why Alexander Hamilton said what he said. All men with political power ought to be distrusted. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Fortunately, our founders were wise enough to divide up government. And so I think we have a right to ask questions like this. I mean, why is it that you ran on a MAGA platform and said one thing, and now you seem to be doing something completely different? And, the more disrespect he throws towards his base, to me, the more of a sign it is that he's moving in the wrong direction. And we as Americans have every right, to point this out. So I don't feel bad about it or guilty about it at all, even though I voted for the man 3 times.
I want to move to World War III here, but I want to play just...
Brannon,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I am trying my best to be, polite here, but I want to say something, again, at the risk of being a wrong person to speak of this in this panel, but I understand what you're saying of, yes, we appreciate all the good he's done. But one thing I have learned as a very newly saved Christian is our way to heaven, it's not about our report card. It's not like you did 5 good, 1 bad, okay, you get to heaven.
Right.
Okay. So that's how I'm looking at this. He's done great for economy in the first term, whatever the case might be. But his behavior in the last 3 months has been absolutely, in all shapes and form, not biblical. I'm an independent, so I'm neither conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, none of that. So I can't even hide behind that. But my only way of looking at his behavior and putting my support behind him or being negative about him comes through my faith in Christ. And I can't support this man no matter how many good deeds he puts on the table. Here's an example. He, as you just said, as Andy Woods just said, he ran on America first. Shut the doors, stop trying to plan. By the way, the plan you read, Brannon, you didn't, for your audience to know, this plan is estimated to have been written and finalized on August 25th and discussed in the cabinet on August 27th. That is 22 days ago. So he came up with the plan, his administration, his people put the time and energy to come up with the plan to rebuild Gaza under his supervision or his lead, whatever he called it. What happened to America? Why don't we put that time and energy and effort to rebuild here in America?
Yep.
Why are we going to Gaza to rebuild? That is not America first. And again, as we repeatedly said it, people online are saying it, he's directly stepping on God's toe by trying to claim the land that was directly, word by word, very clearly, doesn't need an expert to translate it. It was given and promised to Israel. So I just wanted to say, I understand what you're saying, but I do not feel at all bad. And I don't even think we're being negative about Trump. We're being informative to your audience who may not understand what's coming.
Amen to that. And I'll tell you what's coming. It is a massive terrorist attack. You and I know it. This audience knows it. These people, military-aged males, weren't sent in here to, become fat and lazy and enjoy the American way of life. They're still here. We never hear about the CCP 100,000 plus military-aged males. They're still here. Former CIA, former intelligence people are screaming at the top of their lungs about what's coming. And we're worried about Gaza. We're not telling our people, you need to get food, you need to get water, you need to get medical kits, that what happened on October 7th, they told us they want to do this in America. They're going to go after our churches, our schools, our hospitals. They just found hundreds of SIM servers and SIM cards that could disrupt all of 911, send out what are millions of fraudulent text making threats, use it to take the 911 system and SWAT hospitals, churches, elementary schools, whatever, to royally confuse the first responders, as I've said over and over, move them to the wrong side of town, and then they go and attack the other side of town. They can disrupt transportation. I mean, I've been reading over the weekend more about these SIM servers and SIM cards. And I'm telling you, they're not just in New York, 35 miles outside of New York. They're all over the country. And this report coming from the DNI a week ago Friday was warning first responders. And so we should have all hands on deck preparing the American people from what clearly is coming, and the government either has no intentions of stopping it or they can't. And I would venture to guess tonight, President Trump doesn't know what I just said. He doesn't know that. They deliberately have the man, I think, in a bubble. But, yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, there's another angle that we need to explore, and that is the NAR connection to President Trump. That's the new apostolic
reformation.
Exactly.
Modern day prophets and apostles, who, by the way, they believe they are the new Israel. They're into replacement theology. While they talk nice about Israel up front, if you go study their theology, they really believe the church is the new Israel. Yes. And these are false prophets, false apostles talking into his ear like Paula White.
Exactly so. And this is becoming a dominant theme, I think, in America, especially since the passing of Charlie Kirk. Not that he was involved directly, but most of the people, many of the people who have kind of taken that over now, they're also associated with NAR. This is a major thing with respect to Israel, because they really, really, really do not believe Israel has any right to anything in the Mideast. They believe that the church has replaced Israel as a basic entity for God's blessing. So if you look at Trump's actions in the Mideast right now, maybe this didn't have anything to do with Israel as we understand Israel, but maybe he was lobbying for the church, quote unquote, right, to take over Gaza. And rightfully so, because they think, well, hey, we're the replacement for Israel. We're in charge of that land now.
I want to go to one, before I go to World War III and then wrap, I want to go to Tony Blair again. Here he is speaking at the 2025 World Governments Summit, which was in, I think, United Arab Emirates. So think Islam, folks. So this is the guy they're going to bring in the peace board with President Trump to run Gaza. Really? And notice he's talking to Larry Ellison, who's also been brought into the Trump administration. So please understand, the two of these guys are together. They're speaking at the same event, Tony in person. I guess Ellison's appearing on video at the World Government Summit 2025 in United Arab Emirates. Understand what's coming, folks. Listen.
When you come to government and what government's doing, there are artificial intelligence tools, and some of them I know that Oracle have developed around financial management for government, but also tell us a bit about what, because you're right at the forefront of this revolution, what it means for what government should do in terms of its digital infrastructure, digital ID, data centers, and so on.
How do you take advantage of these incredible AI models? And the first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
So you're really, through the use of this, you're revolutionizing the way government works, right? The services it provides, the way that it operates. What about things like financial management, procurement? How can AI help a government operate more efficiently, more effectively, give a more direct and better service to the citizen?
All right. They're going to always tell you how it's effective, it's safe, it's wonderful, like the COVID shot. I told you that was safe and effective. When we look back, we're going to find out that what was put in place, and this is what I warned my audience before President Trump came in, are they going to let him back in because he can convince people and do things that no one else could, that Kamala couldn't do? That these data centers are really about just putting in a digital Gestapo, digital concentration camps. We're going to look back and realize that we've been played, whether deliberately or out of ignorance. But when we look back at this 4-year term, I think we're going to be very, very unhappy. Patrick?
I think so. Yeah, I agree with you. Totally. Yeah.
All right, let me switch to World War III before we wrap. Here is General Kellogg saying this, and how you guys think this all fits in. Here we go.
As we forget that, and we should react accordingly.
I just want to clarify. Are you saying, though, that it is the president's position that Ukraine can conduct long-range strikes into Russia, that has been authorized by the president?
I think reading what he has said and reading what Vice President Vance has said, as well as Secretary Rubio, the answer is yes. Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries. That's one of the reasons I believe that this last week, and it has been confirmed, that President Zelensky asked President Trump to get Tomahawk missiles, which give you a depth. They're really good systems. America makes the best systems in the world.
Are we giving him the Tomahawks?
Well, that decision has not been made, but he's asked. I know that President Zelensky did, in fact, ask for them, which was confirmed by a social media post by Vice President Vance. That's going to be up to the president to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so he just said, yes, they've been given permission to strike deep inside Russia. We're in World War III already at various levels, but I don't think there's any turning this ship around, Dr. Lindstedt. We're going to World War III, and I think that when we get into it, That's when Americans are going to finally wake up, because most of them are asleep right now. They don't realize what's about to come. And I think the possibility of a civil war or massive terrorist attacks combined with civil unrest and World War III would be quite the doozy on this country that, by the way, we don't see mentioned in Bible prophecy at all.
Yeah, we've got to keep our eyes on the book, because the book is the truth. It's God's plan. And we're having lots of people suggest we can do this and that, but usually it's for selfish reasons. And so I look at what's taking place. There's just no consistency. We flip-flop. We got to stay with God's word.
Comment from you, Dr. Woods, in closing.
Yeah, well, real quick to correct my error earlier, I attributed a quote to Alexander Hamilton. That's a James Madison quote. And real quick, that book by McTernan that you were talking about, it's entitled As America Has Done for Israel. But I guess, and one other quick thing about Turkey. Turkey has come up. So let me talk Turkey here for about 30 seconds. Four names in Ezekiel 38. And it's the only nation that we have in that chapter that gives us four names. Identify Turkey as one of the invaders: Meshach, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. So if someone tries to sell you on the idea that Erdogan is a man of peace and a strong man and a good-looking guy and all this kind of stuff, as Rob just said, Dr. Rob just said, we got to filter that through the lens of God's word. Turkey is one of the invading nations, and it's fitting into the exact pattern that God said it would fit in. So I guess by way of closing, I think that last clip you played of the centralization of technology. We've got to centralize everything. Boy, that sure sounds familiar. That's what Nimrod tried to do in Genesis 11 at the Tower of Babel that God disrupted, and that is the path of the future Antichrist. We know he's going to do the exact same thing, Revelation 13, verses 16 through 18. And just as Nimrod was stopped dead in his tracks as God confounded the language through a miracle, the Antichrist is going to be stopped dead in his tracks through the second advent and personal return of Jesus, who finally will bring true lasting peace to the Middle East. So if you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, in spite of all these things we've been talking about, you can be optimistic that you're on the winning side of history.
Amen. Dr. Lindsay, Dr. Wood, or Patrick Wood, since 2022, Russia has spent about $263 billion on military advancement. They don't seem to be slowing down. How do you think the war is being advanced with Russia based on Palantir, AI, other companies? I mean, Palantir, they said, was involved early on in tracking down bin Laden. Do you believe this pushing of war against Russia, as Trump has done in his True Social, is because he's been told by J.D. Vance and Palantir and these guys, we can defeat Putin because we have this powerful computer system that can target cities, everything we need, and we can beat him in a war now?
I think that's a good point. Nobody in the civilian world has a good understanding of just how powerful Palantir's weaponry is at this point, the AI weapons they have. And apparently, however, when Trump recently went to the UK, and with all the tech bros in attendance, by the way, and he made a couple of deals with the king over there, King Charles, Palantir walked away with a $1.2 billion contract from the UK for their war-making software, the targeting software. That's the biggest foreign deal in the history of the world, I think, at that point for software programs. So this probably will be spread to all the NATO nations then, and they'll have it in their possession to execute against Russia. Now, Russia doesn't have this software program. And it appears to me that, yes, that Trump might be overconfident at this point. But nevertheless, this is the situation. How could Trump say with certainty that he was going to push Russia back to the original borders of their land, and without any way to make it up? Well, the only way I can see it is taking the combined forces of NATO to push back forcefully. And that basically is going to trigger World War III, in my opinion. So who knows?
And Annie, President Trump saying, this and that about Venezuela. We've already targeted a few folks out there smuggling drugs, which I think is fine. But now they're talking about maybe striking with drones, et cetera, inside the country. It's, I'm sure there are people who would like to be set free from crooked Maduro. But again, we need to concentrate on America. We know that Hezbollah is in Venezuela. That's Iran. China's in Venezuela. We got a lot of our enemies are in Venezuela. We don't know what they've developed. Since about 2010, we have talked about perhaps missiles being in northern Venezuela, Caracas, Venezuela, 1,264 miles as the crow flies to Miami. A flight that goes from Tehran to Venezuela all the time that you can't get on. It's a government flight, obviously. What do you make of us now stirring it up with Venezuela militarily? Are we again not inviting massive kinetic warfare on our own soil, as Gordon Chang has predicted is coming to the American soil?
We are. We absolutely are. And as far as missiles, I have a report on my Substack showing the receipt that most of the Shahed missiles are being built, literally built and stored in Venezuela. And yes, you have IRGC and Hezbollah there. But problem at this point, I'm going to switch from Trump and administration to people. Brannon, the problem with most of our fellow Americans is, as you said earlier, it's hypocrisy. Okay. There is a support for what Trump is doing with Hamas. By the way, quickly, since we're doing quick notes, back to what you just said of possibly them doing October 7th here in America. Why wouldn't they? They just learned that you can commit October 7th and then be rewarded or be given amnesty if you just agree to Trump's terms. So that just encouraged them to do it. But problem is, people are cheering this so-called 21-point deal because Trump is working towards peace. But then when it comes to Venezuela, they also cheer that because Trump is fighting evil. You see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. As long as there's such a high level of hypocrisy within, I will say this out loud, forgive me, within the Republicans and conservatives of America, they need to take notes from Democrats. Look, no matter what, they fight for the cause. And I was under impression Republicans and conservatives' cause is America. Stop the hypocrisy. And to my fellow Christians directly, I just say, open your Bibles. And if you would take my suggestion, just read, specifically go to Ephesians 5:11 and stop defending President Trump's deals and also stop cheering him when he decides to have selective outrage and go to Venezuela. We do not have enough intel to know what we're walking into, unless this is another CIA operation to topple the current regime and install a different regime.
So that we can get the oil and the resources to add to our tokenization ledger.
Exactly. Just like what just happened with Pakistan and with Syria, we're just doing the same thing with Venezuela. But bottom line is there is no reversing damages in America as long as the level of hypocrisy and selective outrage is where it's at today.
Mm-hmm. liveuptofreedom.substack.com, liveuptofreedom.com, and liveuptofreedom.substack.com. Also, Patrick Wood, he is technocracy.news, technocracy.news. Andy Woods, he is andywoodsministries.org, andywoodsministries.org. Rob Lindstead, Bible Tip. That's Bible TIP, stands for Truth and Prophecy. BibleTipNow.com. I got all that right, Rob?
Yep, you do.
Guys, thanks for being with us. We appreciate you guys. You're very, very well appreciated by our audience. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Brannon.
God bless.
You too, guys. And Dr. Lindstedt will be, or Dr. Woods will be with us this weekend if you're part of our 22nd annual National Worldview Weekend. And if you want to be with us, you can still grab a ticket. I think we have a few seats left. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Otherwise, make sure you have your membership to the vault and you can live stream it this Friday night and Saturday. Again, I'll be off the air Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm telling you in advance so you don't worry about me. But I need to get ready for the conference, rest my voice. We have dress rehearsal for the concert banquet and the keynote address by Adia on Thursday night, and then getting ready for the conference. So we have a lot to do. So I will be off the air Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Lots to share with you when we come back on Monday, obviously. So again, we'd love to have you join us, worldviewtube.com/vault to live stream it, worldviewtube.com/vault. Hey, look, we just had a long panel there. Didn't even stop for a commercial break. Do you appreciate all we do? Please go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Find a product there. Ella Grace, Gatatana, whatever it might be. The new Bella Melts, the caramels with the great all-natural substance in it that helps you curb your appetite. You'll check it out there at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You can find all of our sponsors. And of course, our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. All right. The gold keeps setting record highs. Silver is way up today. Let's get a quick update from Michael Weiner. Why gold just skyrocketed and reevaluating gold from about $42.50 an ounce to maybe the market price of $4,000, $5,000 an ounce. Again, more proof there is a great reset coming, and it's going to involve the de-dollarization and the reset. We'll get into it for a few minutes before we close out tonight with Michael Weiner right after this. Don't go away.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you we've talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
Melissa Howse, BG.com, just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 Fast Action.